Okay, so I was being a nice interviewer. Now we're getting down to business. And I don't care if you don't like me after this, because you'll know who I am and you'll know what your constituents are expecting out of you if you want them to vote for you. Is that, you willing to agree to that, to be honest, truthful, transparent?
Absolutely.
Okay, so these are going to be short interviews on social media, the snapshots of this conversation. I may do mini bites where there's a series, like one reel, then part two, then part three, or it might be just out there so people got time while they're driving for maybe 20 seconds to listen to part of this. So this is what I want to know is, we were talking about your grandfather serving in 3 wars. Now we have Republicans that believe that whatever Donald Trump is saying is true, number one. Therefore, they're supporting MAGA. And you know what? I'm basically another Donald Trump, except I don't lie and I don't break the law. I have a business background. I did go through bankruptcy 12 years ago when I got sick from cancer. I don't think he got sick. I think he just got broke. And I don't remember how many times he went bankrupt. It was at least 2 or 3 times. I'm not sure. And uh, I have never said in public the things he had said in public about the way he treats women. And he's been accused and lost civil cases against raping and molesting women. Is that true or not true?
That is disgustingly true.
Okay. So if you know somebody that's like that, would you let your children or wife be in the same room with a man like, I don't even want to call him a man, with a king without no clothes on? Is a good way to say it. Would you allow your children or your wife to be alone in a room with him or any of your children?
Absolutely not. I only want people of integrity, people who are good at being a role model, people that I can trust to be around myself, my wife, and my son.
So what the fudge is going on with all of my Republican friends, people that voted for me when I ran for mayor because they know who I was? But I follow the word of God as a guideline. Not that people need to be following Judaism. I'm not saying that. But Christianity, Protestant, being a Protestant, being a Protestant, being a Catholic, uh, being a atheist is the exception. But I know a lot of atheists that still follow the Ten Commandments. Being Muslim, they emulate Abrahamic law. Muslims, we have the same patriarch, Abraham, and Ishmael and his brother Isaac learned from the same father, Abraham. He's the father of both nations. And that they follow, basically, we follow those laws. Now, extreme Islamic extremism is different because that's based on Muhammad. But I'm talking about pre-Muhammad, and Muslim people observe the Quran in such a way that they believe in being peaceful. Not everybody is extremists, just like there are Christians that are extremists, and there's Jewish people that are in jail as we speak, like Harvey Weinstein, like what's that other um, enterprise guy that killed himself in jail? I forgot his name. Uh, it's when I see their name, I'm embarrassed, truly embarrassed. But that doesn't mean that's who we are. And Schumer, not to protect Israel, You know what? I have a problem with that. Not just because he's a Jew, he embarrasses our name. But Chuck Schumer, I believed in him that he fought for democracy. How could you fight for democracy? Just like letting you know, somebody that rapes women into the same room with your child alone. How could you support somebody? And I want to support him and I want to be able to vote for him. I'm not in his district, but how could I support somebody that's not supporting the only country in the Middle East that is protecting democracy? Remember how the jihad got started? It didn't get started with Israel. It started when we fought for power during the 70s when OPEC raised the oil prices and cut production. I was there on lines, used to have pay a price of, believe it or not, 35 cents a gallon, and it went up to $1.25, and everybody had a fit. And there's a gas shortage. The prices went sky high to $1.25. We were on lines for 3 hours just to get gas. That's when it started back in the 70s and the 80s. And then it continued to escalate into spiral inflation because we had a president that didn't know how to fix it, President Nixon at the time. And it got spiral inflation. When that happens, you can't contain it. It takes a life of its own. And then the only thing that happened is housing price. We talk about inflation today. Inflation went up to 18% for mortgages. People had to do carryback loans to get lower interest rates to buy houses. That is where it started. It started over oil in the Middle East because the Arab countries created OPEC and created unity. I'm giving you a history lesson for those that don't know it. I know you went to college, so you know a lot about history. This is just making a point for everyone to know. For those that are in college today, I don't know what they're teaching you in school, but if you support Hamas, you're supporting extreme terrorists, the same terrorists that attacked 9/11 and killed 3,000 people. My cousin worked in the federal building, which is about 4 blocks away from the Twin Towers. When they were told to leave the building and walk through the Holland Tunnel on 9/11, they looked at the building. You know what they saw? They saw people jumping out of the building because they'd rather jump to their death than get burnt alive. And when he saw that today, he still will not fly on a plane. That is what happened with jihad starting in 9/11. And what's happening today is jihad. They told us they were going to do jihad. They're doing jihad in Israel. Biden is not talking, but his actions speak louder than words. And I know who Biden is. I've watched his career since Watergate. I was in college videotaping Watergate. And if anybody had chutzpah, which is a word for guts, to get things done, he went after President Nixon for Watergate like there was no tomorrow. Biden is quiet, but I see all kinds of aircraft carrier, military support, and weapons going to the Middle East. And do you know why that is? Because without that little tiny country that US supports, and the European nations were supporting, even Jordan was supporting, that is the only democracy in that part of the world until the Abraham Accord, which was one of the great things that the Trump administration got done. And he didn't even do it. Jared Kushner did it. But there is only one problem with that. The amalgamation law. Do you know what that is? Because we had to swear ourselves in with that you can't take money from foreign governments. Jared Kushner is not on the radar today. He did an interview. I saw it recently. It's on YouTube. It's a documentary. Don't believe what I say. Listen to his own words. He said, I cut a deal. I didn't know what I was doing. I went into Saudi Arabia. I got everybody together and I made deals so that the Trump and Jared Kushner's enterprise would be allowed to be able to be partners in creating a commercial enterprise of billions of dollars in profit that went into Trump and Jared Kushner's pockets. And Jared Kushner is an Orthodox Jew. Shame on him because he knows better. Not all Orthodox or Jews are bad, but there's not many of us in the world. There's only about 15 million Jews in the world. We're 0.01% of the population. But God's given us the gift to be in great positions to do great things. Proportionally, most Nobel Peace Prizes. The president of Mexico, first woman president, she's Jewish. In Ukraine, he's Jewish, the president there. So there are Jews in the world that are trying to do good as we speak. And the Ukraine is another big part of where democracy needs to be protected. And that's going to be your job. And your job is to get all your fellow Congress on both sides of the aisle to wake up and start protecting democracy. It's not just Donald Trump. It's Trumpism. It's if he, God forbid, is no longer alive, this mega movement will continue. 2025 is about destroying the Constitution. Okay, I gave you my pulpit. You tell me what you're going to do about it. I gave you a mouthful. And Israel falls, democracy will fall in the whole European and Middle East. And then who's next? Who's going to be shooting their nukes as soon as Iran develops nuclear capabilities, which I believe their Ukrainian enrichment is already done. Bibi announced at the UN 10 years ago, it could be as soon as 10 years before they're ready to launch their first nuclear missile. And if we don't convert to being Muslim, this is extremism, not all Muslims, then they will start killing every person that doesn't convert. That doesn't sound like our creator to me, but that's what they believe in.
Well, that's a lot of information to digest. But let me tell you this. I am 100% behind Ukraine. Ukraine is fighting a just war, and we need to give them everything they need to defend Europe. We cannot allow Putin. He is a totalitarian dictator. And we all thought Ukraine would have fallen rapidly within weeks to months. And they have lasted years, and they are fighting for their lives. And I absolutely support them. And you know what happens if we turn our backs on Ukraine? Next to fall is Poland, and on and on. And again, we can't be a bunch of Neville Chamberlains and have a fake peace in our time and completely blow the most powerful alliance in the history of the world, which is NATO. And so it's absolutely important that we do everything we can to support Ukraine. Now, you brought up Israel. Israel went through a terrible attack on October 7th. That was their September 11th. And you know what happened after September 11th? The United States went into Afghanistan. We went into Iraq, and we waged war for near 20 years. And we held Osama bin Laden. We held him responsible, and we killed him. And that was the right thing to do.
What president killed him?
It was Obama.
Exactly.
The right thing. He sent in SEAL Team 6, and they took him out. Unfortunately, he wasn't even in Afghanistan nor Iraq. He was in Pakistan.
Yep.
So we made a lot of miscues in that 20 years, and it cost us dearly. It cost us in lives, in American soldiers. It cost us in billions of dollars. And even trying to get out cost even more lives, and it was messy. Well, now Israel has the opportunity. You spoke for a long time. So now
I may edit a lot of what I said out. I want to get you to talk about it.
Here we go.
Okay.
So what happened to Israel was a terrorist attack, and Hamas did a terrible thing on October 7th. Thousands of Israelis killed, hostages taken. women raped, children massacred. That is wrong. It was wrong. And Israel has the obligation and the right to defend itself. And we can say, well, they had a huge national security failure on October 7th.
Absolutely.
They had a terrible October. It was a terrible thing. And so they absolutely have the right to defend themselves. However, now the leaders of Hamas neutralized and killed. The leaders of Hezbollah neutralized and killed. And so most of Hamas destroyed, their infrastructure laid to waste. It's an unfortunate reality now that when you move from this retaliation, from a terrible, terrible situation of what occurred to an occupation, this is when things start to become very, very difficult. The deaths of 40, 50,000 Palestinians is a huge price to pay. And what happens is it starts to wear at the fabric of the people of Israel, at the fabric of the alliance. And so just like when the United States occupied Afghanistan and occupied Iraq, there came a point where it was a point of no return, a point of what is the end game? And so I ask, in Israel at this point, what is the end game? You've destroyed the leaders. You've laid waste to all infrastructure. The human toll has been massive. And so I believe Israel needs to learn from the lessons of the United States that when it becomes an occupation, it becomes a no-win situation, unfortunately. And so now is a time for reconciliation, is a time to readjust. Now, unfortunately, because of politics, you have a very, very right-wing parliament in Israel. And unfortunately, any movement at this time could cause the Netanyahu president or his prime ministership to crumble, and he's in a very tough situation. The Palestinian people of Gaza, they voted for Hamas as their leadership. And so what's happened is you've put in very, 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 very authoritative leadership on both sides. And now the people are suffering. But it's time to bring the hostages home. Those people have been hostages for over a year. And it's unlikely that many of them may even be alive. But it's time to think of reconciliation, and it's time to bring the hostages home.
Okay, so I'm going to rebuttal on that because I told you we're going to be straight. And what you had just expressed comes from the New York. Sorry, I'm in New York. Okay, got to get back into the country. Is the optics that the news channels in this country is portraying. Now, I watch about 10 news channels. I watch Fox News because I need to know what they're doing. I watch CNN, MSNBC, regular PBS, ABC. I watch Israeli 2 channels on there. They report pretty much the same thing. I watch Indian news and Al Jazeera when I have the patience to watch some of their propaganda. But sometimes they report the truth. So I try to look and find the truth, and then everybody could do this. All you have to do is grab your chat GPT and ask the question, please fact check whatever it is somebody says. I do it while I'm watching the news to see, or for somebody running for a campaign and seeing how accurate it is. They could do it on this interview that we're doing. There'll be short ones and then there'll be longer ones. So, but I'm going back to Israel. First of all, I didn't know what I know today because I actually studied in depth. I've been to Israel for the first time with my anniversary with my bride a year and a half ago in March. When I went there, It was an unbelievable experience. You want to know why? Because Israel has the best soldiers. They're 19 years old, mandatory. They have to go into IDF. They have the best police because we were talking about off camera about the beginning of jungle warfare and urban warfare began at Vietnam, where US soldiers had to go into civilian occupied villages. Afghanistan, US soldiers had to determine who's the enemy, who's wearing a bomb that's going to blow up soldiers, sometimes women, young women, sometimes children. They'd sacrifice them. That's happening all the time in Israel for decades and decades, all coming from jihad. And you have to know that the history of Israel, the British at that time, there were nomads, no such thing as the word Palestine. It never existed in history until the British took over Israel after the Ottoman Empire. When that happened, the people that lived in Jordan, Israel was just a desert. It was not, there was nothing there. There was nomads from Jordan. People that lived in Jordan just lived in different areas. So when that happened in 1948, right, actually 45, right after World War II was finished with Germany, all the Jews that were in concentration camps, they had no place to go. Long story short, they wound up going on one ship called the Exodus, and then they finally got the UN, when the UN was doing its job properly, to vote Israel as an independent country that is for the Jewish nation, which was dispersed because Israel was occupied for thousands of years and owned by the Jewish people called Israel, the descendants of Abraham. And since that time, the Romans conquered them. The Christian Crusades took over. That was another time when they fell. And then he finally got dispersed. Persia also. Persia was actually kind of, they took over. They said, you got to leave. You could come to Persia, which is now, ironically, Persia is Iran. And there's a lot of Jews that used to live in Iran because that king believed in conquering a nation, but allowing them to keep their culture and living. It was a very high level, but still it was conquering the land. So they took all the people out of Israel that was alive at that time, and they lived in Iran until the story of Esther, which was she got married to the king and said, let them go back. God spoke to them. This is in the Bible. And then a good portion of the Jews returned to rebuild Israel, and then they built the temple, and then that was the beginning, and then temples got destroyed by Rome, and like I told you. That's the history. So moving up back to 1940.
Very aware of history, my friend. I'm a child of history and study.
Okay. Good. Okay, so the rebuttal is this. So England's the troublemaker. They come along because they're imperialists, and they took over and they said, we're going to tell you what's going to happen here. So the UN made Israel a nation. The territory was divided up into 6 pieces. Gaza was one. Jordan, the East Bank was another, where Gaza, which is next to Jordan on on the West Bank, and then northern Israel right now, where it goes in about a few miles, Lebanon, was Israel, owned by Israel historically, but then it was divided up by the British. So there was no Palestine. The word Palestine got created by the British, not by the Arab people that lived there. The original people that are now in Gaza are not Palestinians, they are Jordanians. The problem is Jordan doesn't want to take them back. So they're staying in Gaza. And as you know, the history, Israel cut a deal, said, we're going to take all the Israelis that live in northern Gaza, and they're going to remove them. They left farms there. They left businesses there. They left it for now what's called the Palestinian people. And what happened was Hamas built all the tunnels. They basically put all their military and using human people in hospitals, where their industrial complex, the schools. So how do you fight a war? And those statistics, 40,000, did not come from the US. That did not come from an authority. It came from the, I forgot the name of it, but it is the representation of the Hamas political structure that was there. They're the ones reporting how many deaths. And out of those deaths, how many of those are militants and how many of those are collateral damage. The other part of that, what's acceptable in the Geneva Convention is a proportion of deaths. If we're going to play a football game talking about life and death, let's talk the facts. The 4-to-1 is for one person killed. I think it's 4-to-1. One person killed out of 4 civilians. Is anything beyond that? If it's 2 out of 4, then that's too many collateral damage. But when you're using shields like Saddam Hussein did, you're using, how do you fight a war like that? It's the same thing like Afghanistan. How does a 19-year-old soldier go into a house and figure out, is this the enemy? Do they have weapons in their closet ready to kill me? When a girl walks up in Gaza Strip, does she have a bomb on her? Do you know how many bombs blew up in Israeli buses? This is what jihad is. Hamas' charter is to kill every Jew, not just in Israel, in the whole world. That is a terrorist organization that belongs to Iran. Cut the head off, and the organizations will die. So that's what Israel's strategy has been. This is about taking out Hamas first, because they shot rockets not since October 7th a year ago. They shot. I had a friend in Ashkelon, which is a neighboring beautiful city on the ocean. She said that the crickets, with the Israeli accent. I said, "What crickets? The crickets?" She said, "No, rockets. Every day."
But here's the thing, and I appreciate the history lesson, but let's look at the United States. We went into Afghanistan, occupied Afghanistan for 20 years, spent countless dollars and countless lives lost to take out the Taliban.
Yes.
And you know what? As soon as we left, the Taliban is back. The Taliban is exactly what it was before. And so that is the challenge. And that is the challenge.
I'm glad you brought that up.
We have the strongest military by far in the world. Israel is definitely a strong military, but the issue being is we went into Afghanistan. We were in Afghanistan for 20 years. And what happened? The Taliban, it just came right back. And now the women in Afghanistan are treated even more poorly than ever. And also we've knocked them back to the Stone Ages. We've destroyed Afghanistan. We've knocked down every mud hut. They had tunnels. We blew them up with the biggest bombs. We did everything the same. And what was the outcome after 20 years? The cost was massive. The debt was massive, and the Taliban are still there. So every single one of those children, that whether they're Palestinian or whatever you want to call them, Jordanian, what's going to happen is they will never forget. And now through their entire life, they will grow up to be that next generation of militant. And so by this constant barrage of bombs and destruction, it becomes counterproductive. Now, I'm not trying to tell them what to do. I'm trying to actually have them learn by what happened to us. And when we went into Afghanistan, I asked that, and this was back in 2001, what was the end game? And what is the end game for Israel? Because what will happen, just like you said, this jihad will become a never-ending situation. And you can only armorize your society to a certain extent. Eventually, like you said, it's a little girl with a bomb, a young child can become a militant. And so what happens, and then as the war progresses into Lebanon, more individuals that'll be militarized. And what happened in Iraq? ISIS became what it is today. And so it's so hard to destroy an idea. And that's what Al Qaeda was. It wasn't a person, it was an idea.
Okay.
It's the cancer of the mind. The cancer of the mind. So is Hamas. So is Hezbollah. And so what happens is it's like a virus that gets in the mind. And then next thing you know, you have people blowing things up, whether it's the Twin Towers in New York City, or it's the October 7th massacre. And again, I'm not the one that's going to be able to solve this, but when I get to Congress, I'm willing to listen.
Okay, so what you had just said is the narrative I hear in the United States. When I listen to Israeli news and I listen to Prime Minister Netanyahu, at first I was thinking the same thing. I was going, there's too much collateral damage. And they do send out leaflets. They did tell the people in Lebanon, you need to leave. We're going to attack Lebanon because that's where all the rockets are. Everybody in northern Israel, don't you agree they have the right to live in peace? They all had to move out south because
I have a friend who's from Israel. He's a Christian Arab, and it's terrible what he goes through every time these occurrences happen. His family's still there.
Okay,
it is a horrible situation, but I'm gonna stop you there because you and I can go on this forever.
No, I'm getting to a quick point. I'm going to get to a quick point.
I've said what I've got to say about Israel.
Okay.
And again, this election is not going to be one on foreign policy. It's about learning from history. We've made terrible mistakes, and but that's about all we got to say about Israel.
Well,
it's not going to help in this district. The people of the 48th it's not their concern. They're concerned about inflation. They're concerned about the kitchen table politics. They're concerned about how much it costs to go to the grocery store. They're concerned about these things. And so an endless bickering of foreign policy is not going to get us anywhere.
I'm going to cap this off real quick. I was making a point with this. The strategy right now, and I believe that the U.S. will not say this publicly, President Biden will not say this publicly, because he talked about partly the narrative was there's too many casualties. You either fight a war and finish it and create peace, or you do a long drawn out war like Afghanistan. So the way to handle it is you cut the head off the snake. The people in Iran do not want the leader of Iran that is part of the jihad. The jihad's their charter is to destroy democracy throughout the world, and Israel's the little America. They want to destroy Israel first, and then they're coming after us next. So when rockets start coming in and buildings are being blown up, like that happened with people getting machine gunned in France and in other parts of the world, where terrorists from jihad, that is part of, you have to read their, not just you, everybody has to know that plan. So Bibi said,
it's going to have
Bibi just said, I want the people of Iran to be safe. We are not after you. We need the government to be, you need to overthrow your own government. The war will be over right away. The hostages get released. The war is over. Actually, Hamas is destroyed in Gaza. the war will be over. Then you got to educate your children. This I heard from Arabs leaders and Egyptian leaders. Then you got to educate your children not to want to kill and hate Jews, to be able to live in peace. That's all I wanted to say, because that strategy is going to take taking out the Ayatollah and destroying their nuclear capabilities. They have a nuclear bomb, then we've got a big problem, because we've got military all over the Middle East for that particular reason. If they have nuclear capabilities, they will use it. They already promised it. So that's all I wanted to say on that part. Thank you for letting me just.
I agree, but like I said, this district doesn't have that level of. I don't believe that those are the issues that are gonna change anything in the 48th, and so it's the issues. It's inflation. These are the issues.
So you don't think defense is important? If we had, God forbid, if we had one of our shopping centers with terrorists show up with machine guns and kill 300 people just like that, or a bomb is blown up on U.S. soil in California, God forbid, in San Diego, in your district, do you think they'd be interested then?
It's absolutely important, but what I'm saying is when you look at what is the most important to people right now, it's inflation, it's those kitchen table issues.
Okay, let's get back to that. I agree.
Bill, I don't mind talking about anything. I'm saying, there comes a point where, we've talked about it to a great extent. We've talked about the history. I totally agree with you about the history of Israel and all these things, the history, understanding, great understanding. I am also, I love history, but what I'm saying is okay. I don't think over it forever is going to help this election.
We need to move on for the sake of time, but thank you for, I wanted to get that history in because I think it's going to change lives. And I think once you're elected, because your audience right now, I don't underestimate them. I think a lot of people underestimate them, but you are right, because when you can't put food on your table, I have a friend of mine, he's from Israel. It's not the point, but the point is he's very aggressive kind of guy, and he's a farmer. He raises horses, and he goes, so, when Ukraine war broke out, we'll finish up with Ukraine and then get back to domestic.
Well, we got to finish up because I got to go.
Oh, okay. So anyway, he said, well, the gas prices are going up right now because of Ukraine war, which was a trigger. Why? Because Russia controls a lot of the oil, and Putin's backing, by the way, Iran, and China is backing Iran. So the money is going in that's creating those bombs that's going in Israel. We're spending all our taxpayer dollars to defend Israel because of those bombs. We're fighting Putin as a proxy war.
That's how he does it. Just like in Afghanistan when he put, they killed an American, he gave him. That's always been our enemy.
Okay, one last thing for the sake of Biden. I was very upset the way we exited Afghanistan. It was the worst thing since Vietnam. We did the same thing. They're on top of the roof. They're trying to grab the helicopter. How dare we treat people like that? And I was mad at Biden when that happened. And I didn't do my homework. I didn't know what caused that to happen. Now, you're a history buff. Trump was responsible. Can you tell the people what had happened real quick so we could get your wife happy?
Is Trump invited the Taliban to Camp David, and he cut a deal with them and gave away all the information that they needed, and started a withdrawal that, started the inertia on the withdrawal that could not be reversed. And so he did it in a very poor manner. He tied the hands of the next administration, and it was inevitable that somebody was going to try to take out American soldiers on their and kill American soldiers. And unfortunately, Darrell Issa has used this as a campaign issue, and yet he never brought any type of solutions. And he tries to run on these sorts of things, and that's what he does. He's a harvester of sorrow.
Okay,
and he comes in if he had something like he had some sort of solution, whether it's the border, the international border, or whether it's Afghanistan.
Okay, that's a major issue. The border affects domestic and inflation. Let's get to that. We're going to have to fast track this, or I'm not going to be welcome to your house when you invite me to dinner. It's a joke. Don't take that
It's
seriously.
all good. It's all good. But yeah, we've gone about 2 hours. So yeah, let's hopefully
No, my wife is trying to feed me right now, and she walked out.
yeah, it's about that time.
Okay, real quick. So we got to cover this quick. So excuse me for coughing, but I have a minor issue. Okay, so given that his stance, Daryl Issa, is he's using that as a talking point. And what is he saying that's different from we're being transparent, talking the truth. Right now, the voters are going to watch this. This is going to be Republican voters that are regular Americans that are trying to put food on the table. They're dealing with, we're going to talk about inflation as a separate thing and try to, do a quick soundbite on inflation. They're dealing with what they think is inflation. And then we have Daryl Issa giving out what I call, no, I don't want to call it fake news. It's propaganda. Let's call it for what it is. It is pure propaganda. It was designed by Donald Trump, who's a snake oil salesman. And the people that believe in Trump, and my friends will hear it, and they will hate me for saying what I just said, but the truth is the truth. He has violated every federal law that I could even try to research and learn about. And he's not done yet, because if he becomes president, he's done. The first thing he's going to do is get a new, what do you call it? Attorney General.
So you talk about the border. Daryl Issa creates a crisis so he could run on it. Donald Trump creates a crisis so he could run on it. There was a bipartisan deal before Congress set up by reputable senators, and they voted it down. It would have brought in money, manpower, machinery, and it would have been one of the tightest border deals in the history of the United States. And they voted against it. What we need to fund the Border Patrol. We need to make sure that there's manpower. We need to make sure that we bring down machinery that can sense fentanyl, because we have a fentanyl crisis, overdosing, killing our children. We need to make sure that we have immigration judges, so that somebody who does legitimately come to the border as a refugee has their day in court. So we know we can do this. We need comprehensive immigration reform. We need critical workers. We need doctors. We need nurses. We need agricultural workers. Absolutely. It's good for the economy. We need to make sure that the dreamers are finally made whole and made citizens. That is so important. And we also need to modernize farm workers. So there's a bill before Congress, the Modernization of Farm Workers Act. And that way we get our food at a reasonable price and inflation will come down. Talking about those kitchen table issues. That's what needs to happen for immigration.
That was a good point. And yours truly is in Mexico. I have to come to see my wife one day a week because she cannot cross the border until she gets a green card 2 years ago. And I'm sitting here waiting for a surgery I cannot have because Homeland Security needs to send us a document to get a waiver, and then she'll have her green card. So the system is so messed up because, yes, people that are being threatened by cartels, and this is the land of cartels that I'm in right now, and they're in South America, and they have the right to come to this country. But what is being abusive, and it's on the books, that if a husband and wife cannot be together, that's a hardship. And that's enough to get an extreme hardship, emergency paperwork, paperwork expedition. And I applied and got denied on her interview for a green card July 1st. I fired my lawyer, got a new representative end of July, and he put in paperwork to Homeland Security just to get the Freedom of Information Act so that we could see her record before we send in the waiver and get it expedited. My Congresswoman, Sarah Jacobs, because your district is right next to me, used to be my district. Darrell Issa used to be my representative, and they gerrymandered basically you out of that district. So you should
would expedite your issue. The Houlahan plan helps you.
The Houlahan plan.
The Houlahan plan. And the other thing is we need to talk about inflation. And you know what's going to bring down inflation? Competition. Competition is the American way. And my opponent is the monopoly maker. And so that's not what capitalism is about. And that's not what our country is about. We need competition. And so I support increasing the tax benefit for those that start a small business from $5,000 to $50,000. That is a great incentive to get a business started and to start that competition. And that's what's going to bring back America. Small businesses is what built America. And unfortunately, people have been stifled from building those small businesses. We have a modern day group of robber barons at Amazon, on social media, that destroy small business. And so we need a plan to bring back small businesses. And that's what I'm about. We need competition. We need small businesses. And then we got to bring down prices. And that's how we combat inflation.
Okay, so the law is we're fast tracking this. I'm sorry for everybody. This will be a short interview when we get done with it, but our family is going to kill us shortly. What is the power that Congress has? I already know the answer. What is the power that Congress has to control companies like Amazon? My roommate studied sociology in the 1970s, and he told me the ma and pa shops will not exist anymore. It will be replaced by these large companies like Walmart, like Amazon. He predicted that from his education 50 years ago. Why is Congress sitting there and the president sitting there watching Amazon taking over? Why, when I go to Google and they have ChatGPT, why can't I have ChatGPT working when I put something in and I say, okay, okay, Google, go search for this, and it doesn't search for it. So I have to look for another company, and those companies are dominated by Google. Google buys them out.
They're monopolies, and that's what Congress has, is the power of the purse strings. And so what we have to do is build up the small businesses. We need to subsidize them, and we need to stop subsidizing the monopolies.
What about the Antitrust Act? Why aren't they doing that?
Absolutely. And that goes all the way back, to the time of Theodore Roosevelt, another great Republican who took on all these robber barons. And that's what they are, modern day robber barons. In fact, the discrepancy between the richest and the poorest is greater now than it was in those times. And so the time has come for true representation. And you know what's happened with Citizens United? Those robber barons, they buy their congressmen, but they'll never buy me, because I am a man of the people.
So you're going to support not necessarily breaking companies up so they go away, just making a fair playing field so that people could sell stuff and be able to have businesses locally and be able to go online. We still want to buy stuff online, but just Amazon is the go-to place and eBay is the other go-to place. And then, and there are companies like, okay, I'm a real estate broker, biggest lawsuit ever made in the country, National Association of Realtors, lost it. I've been paying dues for 40 years for them to do what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to be the biggest lobbyist in Congress, and they cave in for what? Because some lawyers had some ideas how they could make a class action suit and then make it harder for buyers. Why did not Congress even intervene in that lawsuit? Why are the bad things happening to good people and Congress is not doing anything about it? That's what the kitchen table is talking about. We're
Well,
giving up on voting.
You got to vote. You got to vote. If you keep voting for people like Darrell Issa, then that's your destiny. Because he supports the robber barons. I support the common man. I'm not rich myself. I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this for the people.
So the border, I got a simple idea. We have AI and we have high technology. We need to hire more people. Everything you said is right. We got to have more judges. We got to build that system up. We got to pass that bill that got turned down by Donald Trump because he's the king and everybody will follow him like lemons jumping off a cliff if he said so. And that bill got killed when we had a bipartisan agreement. Is that not true?
It's sad and true.
So why is Darrell Issa supporting that BS? I couldn't find the candy to use. That fudge.
There's just no accountability within the district. And that's what I'm here for, to bring accountability to him and other bad players in Congress.
So wouldn't you agree with the technology we got is we have Border Patrol that is ready to go. Israel has this. By the way, Israel is the leader on how to, we go to Israel to how to defend ourselves against terrorism and how to have observation for the enemy, including the equipment. By the way, Elon Musk right now controls satellites, which how did that happen? And where's the government dealing with that? Are you going to deal with that? Because that's
he's another robber baron. They need to be scared.
That scares us all when I hear about him having Starlink controlling the Ukraine war. Okay, moving real quick. Why can't we have drones like in Israel? They have drones that observe to protect the borders. They'll build a wall. That's like from the 1950s technology. Have drones all over the 3,000 miles. We could cover it. Just at the busy ports, have the walls there. We do at Tijuana. They rebuilt the wall at Tijuana. Rebuild those in the busy crossings.
About money, my man.
It's about voting. It's about voting. That's where the money comes.
That's ancient China technology.
Yeah.
They built a Great Wall in China. And you know what? Genghis Khan went around it.
Yeah.
Went around it and he conquered them. Don't walls, build bridges.
So would you
need a virtual wall with drone technology?
Exactly.
Chris, I'll create it.
So that is part of your plan, to have drones inspecting all the borders, and then, hey, the Border Patrol, they're quick. Their trucks could go through the desert real quick, and then let's get high-powered equipment. Yeah, we could use the Tesla truck since he's Mr. He is high-tech.
We need stuff that works. We need stuff that works. But yeah, we'll make a virtual wall with drone technology. We'll expand the courts. We'll have more judges. We'll have more manpower. We'll catch fentanyl before it comes across. We'll stop human trafficking. We'll do it all. All we need to do is get rid of these people like Darrell Issa who create a catastrophe so they can run on it year in and year out.
But
here, it's time for them to end.
Okay, so it's just talk theater, and it's basically the Wizard of Oz. Who's behind the curtain? He's got orange hair, and he's a felon. I wonder who that could be. And then he's supporting him. I wonder how that's going to turn out after November 5th.
He'll be gone.
Okay, so Darrell Issa is another one of his minions. And if you keep supporting the minions, they'll continue. Even if Trump is gone, they will still perpetuate the lie. Then it'll be the lie about the election not being fair. He's already planning to lose. He's already going to have another insurrection. And he doesn't believe, he's got all his cronies, not all of Republicans, he's got cronies like Darrell Issa saying that resurrection didn't even happen. And we all saw it on the news. I can't believe the emperor doesn't have any clothes on and nobody's saying anything. Okay.
Well, I'm saying it. They got to go.
All right. So you ready to build bridges and to make things happen?
Build bridges, just like the one to the Tijuana airport. Then
Yeah.
that's an amazing idea.
I
Build, don't build walls.
I drive every day watching them constructing that. It's a separate freeway on top of the freeway that goes directly to the airport. It's genius. And
Genius.
and the other thing they're doing is they're building up this is San Ysidro, so it'd be Otay, the Otay port. They're actually in process of finishing up, and that was a mutual Mexican American idea, so that because the commerce every day between California and Mexico is phenomenal, we have workers that are willing to work, that Mexicans that want to work because they get paid $6 an hour here, and the minimum wage actually it's going to go up soon, but it'll probably be around $20 an hour in the very near future.
It's good for our economy. We need commerce at the border. We need to move people through quicker. We need efficiency. It makes good economic sense. It's good for both sides. And it's, believe me, they're not eating the cats and dogs. They're not sending. These are human beings. They're here, able-bodied, and it's immigrants that have built this nation. I'm not saying open borders, by no means. I want to vertical wall with using technology, stop the fentanyl, stop the trafficking, but let's do what's right economically. Let's fight inflation, and let's do the right thing.
One last point on inflation. We got to mark this to give Biden credit, Biden administration, and all of the rhetoric about that the inflation issue was caused by Biden administration, which is the Biden Kamala Harris administration. First of all, vice presidents cannot leave the president in the shadow.
Absolutely not.
They could consult, but they don't overshadow the president. And Biden is senior to her in years and experience. If he says so, she has to shut up. But now she is in charge.
Here's the thing: the U.S. economy is the envy of the world. Inflation is lower in the United States than anywhere in the world. Our gross domestic product is greater than it was before COVID. Wages are starting to catch up with inflation. Interest rates are coming down. Right now, the stock market is at the highest point in history. This economy needs to continue. More millionaires have been made from 401ks than ever in the past. The good times are now. Elect Houlahan, and that way everyone can be part of this economy, and so people won't be left behind. It's time.
And the good job was done because we supported the party that supported Biden. Biden has been taking so much heat that basically he did the right thing, and it took courage for him to step down. But he stepped down because he believed in Kamala Harris is not just any candidate. She was the president of the Senate as VP. She was the district attorney for many years, and I don't care about the stupid stories they talk about. So what? Get over it. If she had relationships with people, she earned her way to being one of the greatest DAs. I was part of the foreclosure. I was one of the top foreclosure agents. She did major lawsuits against the banks to reimburse the damages that was caused by the banks, and almost the whole economy almost collapsed completely under George Bush's watch. George Bush did the best thing.
George W. Bush collapsed the economy. Donald J. Trump collapsed the economy, and it was Democrats that came in, cleaned up the mess, and created a economy for all. And now is the time to continue that. Inflation will be down, and we'll all celebrate in the future with a great stock market and great gross domestic product and a great future for our children.
Yes, exactly. So you could either believe, if you're sitting in your chair right now and you're drinking coffee and you're thinking you're just going to go out and vote, I don't want to insult anybody out there. Look, I'm paying attention to the news because I'm dug into this stuff. Otherwise, I'd be like everybody else. I watch the stock market every day because it affects interest rates and real estate. It's at 43,000 points. I watched it during Trump administration go from 20,000. And then we had COVID, which it's not just about the money. How many people died because of taking no action? There's a law, if you don't take action, you're guilty of accomplish in that death. But as president, you know, he does have immunity for that. Give that part because he didn't do his job right. But the rest of the immunity, the Supreme Court, that you got to work on all that stuff. You got lots of work to do. And if it doesn't get fixed, what's going to happen on November 6th if it doesn't get fixed?
Just give me a chance, and I'm here to serve.
And you're going to fix that. You promise.
I'm going to work on it. I'm going to do the best I can. I have lots of ideas. I have lots of solutions. And unfortunately, in California's 48th congressional district, we have not been represented properly in Congress for decades. It's time for change. I think you're muted, my friend.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. I must have.
I think it's time to cut it. We got everything we need. I can't hear you anymore, man.
Okay.
All right, go ahead and shut off the recording. I think we got a lot of good stuff. I just hope that any of this will get edited and used.
I'm going to make sure it does. Did you want to just take a second to do a quick outro, like 30 seconds?
Nah, I think we got plenty.
Okay. I'm going to stop the recording. Hold on.